Hey, welcome into our case study interview with the amazing Jason Lundy. So excited to have Jason in here talking about what's it like working within CEO Finance Academy and really focusing on finances as a construction business owner. So Jason, welcome in, man. I would love for you to give a quick insight into tell us about your business. What kind of business do you run? How long have you been in it? Give us the backstory, man, of how you got to be where you're at right now.
Yeah, so background on me is I'm 40 now. I've been in construction in some form or fashion since 19 years old, 1920. I've done everything from working in cabinet shops to framing, flooring, finish work, you name it. I was running other people's businesses through my late 20s, early 30s, and bearing all the stress and fun times of that. And eventually just decided, hey, you know what? Let's roll the dice. Let's do this on my own, and hopefully reap the benefits of that. So 7 years, almost 8 years ago, started my company, Lodestar Construction, and we've done well. We're still here. We still exist. I know the first 3 years of construction, most companies typically nosedive and burn out. We made it past that first 3 years, so that felt good for us. But yeah, that's where we're at now. We are a residential custom home builder who also does additions and remodels. We're in the North Idaho, Eastern Washington area, geographically speaking. And that's it. It's pretty much how we got to where we are.
What kinds of stuff are you guys actually doing in terms of scope of your business? You mentioned residential. I know you got some commercial stuff too, just for context of what kind of jobs are you guys doing all the time? Because you do it everything. As I've talked with you, it's like, holy crap, man, how do you do all that?
Yeah. So on the residential side of things, we do anything from, we could do a new trim out, base case doors, something low level like that, all the way up to a one-off custom home build. And we have in-house crews. That's kind of one of our upsides and downfalls is we perform majority of the work ourselves. So we're going to do all the form work for the concrete. We're going to pour the concrete. We're going to frame your house. We're going to trim it out. There's very few things that we actually sub out on the residential side. On the commercial side, we specialize specifically in finished carpentry. So we're going to do doors, hardware, reception desks. If you've ever walked into a public library or a college and you see the crazy paneling or cool reception desk, we build and install those things. So there's not much we don't do, but we're really trying to lean back towards the residential side because that's where my heart is. That's where I want to be.
Love it. So talk to us about what were some of the financial concerns of running a construction company? What were the challenges that you were having before we started working together that prompted you to want to reach out and get financial help in the first place?
Yeah. So some of the big challenges that I had or had back then was I had no clarity. I had no clarity into where we truly are financially. I would have cash flow statements or P&L statements produced by our accountant or our in-house admin monthly. And, I'm not ashamed to admit that I would look at those and they might as well be in Chinese. I have no clue. I'm going, great. Numbers, awesome. Is there money in the bank account? Cool, let's keep going. But eventually it got to the point of realizing, hey, we can't operate like that as a business. Maybe back when I was a one-man show, okay, cool. Is there money in that bank account? Awesome, I get paid. But, I got 10, 15 guys depending on me for a paycheck now. I got to tighten the ship up a little bit here. So I started searching around online, came across you guys on social media, watched a few videos and reached out. And main goal for me was to try and get the clarity that I just never had. And also learn about finance because truthfully, I know nothing about finance. I know about construction. So that's how I landed here.
Man, I can't believe the IRS didn't put you through the business finances course that they should be requiring of all new business owners. It's wild to me that the government and everyone else expects you to have it all together financially. And it's I'm really good at what I do. And it just kept growing because of that. Right. And we see that all the time.
Yeah, it's kind of terrifying, especially from my perspective, somebody who doesn't understand finance. And I'm not a tax accountant. You get to the end of the year and you're like, are we going to go out of business because I have a $250,000 tax bill, or am I getting money back? I don't know. Let's just roll the dice here. And that's terrifying as a business owner. So yeah, there should be some courses out there, at least some minimum classwork. Hey, basic understanding of this stuff so you don't get fined or put in prison.
So I want to zoom in for a second because you brought it up, the tax situation. Talk to us about how you feel right now. We're currently recording this at the very end of a year. And
Right.
we've been fairly aggressive with how you've allocated for taxes for these years. Talk to me
Right.
about the difference in how you feel about taxes this year versus maybe how you felt in other years, because you've done a pretty decent job of setting yourself up for next year.
Right. So the biggest difference is this year that I've spent with you guys that I didn't have in the previous years of business is, again, back to clarity, right? You help me figure out and find out and at least estimate to within, close parameters of, hey, you're probably going to owe about this much in tax. And we made a plan around that, right? So I could set aside whatever those funds need to be and they're gone. I don't see that in my bank account and go, oh, I got an extra 10 grand. Cool. I didn't have that before. It was just a guess. Hey, I hope we don't owe a bunch of money. But you guys provided that clarity, especially on the tax side, which is the scariest side for me. So, thank you for that. But that was the biggest thing I gained with you guys this year is I know exactly where I sit here at the end of this year. We were aggressive, but I know I'm covered. I know when the IRS shows up next year or here in a month or so, I'm good to go. I have no worry at all. And
I love when you went to your accountant and sort of talked through the numbers and they gave you an estimate.
Right.
And it was like, oh, we've way oversaved versus what they said. I'm so excited for you. I hope you have a gigantic bonus when you file your tax. I'm still skeptical of what the account said. Honestly, we'll see. Yep. But yep. I love you sitting in that role of like, hey, we've had you track cash flow and money in the bank and the difference between accounts payable and accounts receivable like on a weekly basis. You've done such a good job with that since we started together, and it's been so cool to see that amount growing in the bank account while still saving for taxes. It's like, man, right. There are very few business owners who have the discipline to do what you've done this year, man. You should be really stinking proud of it. And I know it's not like all rainbows and butterflies. It never is if you're a business owner, but you've done a really stinking good job of implementing this stuff as we've gone. I want to ask you, what do you feel like? Well, first let's start with this. Someone comes to you and they're like, cool, Jason, I've heard about the CEO Finance Academy thing. I also run a construction company. Like, what do they actually do with you? In your words, what would you describe? Like, what do we actually do when we sit down together?
So what we actually do when we sit down together, at least in my experience, is you kind of curtail the experience to that individual. Because I've also been a part of weekly phone calls where I've met other people who are part of the CEO Finance Academy. And we're all from different walks of life, different businesses. And it's very apparent to me that everybody's kind of got their own customized situation, coach, plan, individually. And that's the experience I had working with Alex and CEO Finance Academy, is that whatever I needed, they provided. They asked the questions to try and figure out where I may potentially be failing or where I don't have visibility or clarity, whether it's taxes or understanding how much money I actually have in my bank account, and produced a plan for me to better realize and understand where I'm at and how to move forward and plan for down the road. So what we do in those calls is we discuss whether it be weekly goals, monthly goals, or annual goals, and how we're going to get there. And then we also review back and look at, okay, here's what we accomplished over the last month, whether it's good or bad. Could, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but either way, let's make a plan, let's work through it, and let's move forward. And that was really important to me because there was a lot of months where I knew, hey, we didn't do very good, and there's not as much money as I was hoping. But you guys were able to coach me through that and show me how to move forward and not go underwater. And there's light at the end of the tunnel. So that's what we do on calls. And I like it. That's what I experienced anyways.
Thank you. It's nice to hear that it's been positive in that sense. And I want to ask for someone who's like, okay, well, I already have a bookkeeper or I already have an accountant. And I think this is appropriate where you have an internal team member doing your books on a very regular basis. What have you gotten from us at CEO Finance Academy that you hadn't been getting from your financial providers otherwise?
Yeah. So again, I'm really good at construction. I'm really good at building. I'm not really good at finance. So what you guys were able to do for me is, for lack of a better term, dumb it down for me, make it understandable, present it in a way that I can understand what I'm reading, and, in my construction mind, make a plan and move ahead with it. I've sat down with accountants, good and bad, and they understand the numbers, they understand tax accounting, and they understand all of that. But in my experience, they are not very good teachers. And especially to somebody like me who just, needs it really broken down to basic levels. You guys are able to do that. You guys are able to present it in a way that I can wrap my head around it and understand it.
So where you have someone internal to your team that's like actually doing the books on a regular basis, right. Why do you feel like we were helpful when you could have just gone there and been like, hey, what is different about us from the bookkeeping side then? Like why have we been useful while you still have an internal team member that maybe could explain some of this stuff to you?
Right. So you've been useful because, the first couple of things that come to mind are planning, right? My internal bookkeeper, the gal that we have that does admin work for us, she understands the numbers. She understands how to produce payroll, make sure we're paying taxes on time. But what she doesn't understand is, what are we doing next month, right? She just works with what she's given. So she has X amount of dollars in the bank account. She makes payroll. She pays the taxes on to the next month, right? Whereas you guys can say, okay, we have this much money. Let's assign a job to that money. What are we doing with it? How's it going to work for us? How's it going to make us more money? So you provide that foresight for us to keep moving down the road and have a plan for that money.
Cool. So next question is around hiring, because we've made a couple of hires while we've been together. Yep. Some of them worked out great. Some of them haven't. Talk to me about what clarity do you feel like you got, or how were we helpful as you were making hiring decisions?
Yeah. So you guys were helpful on the hiring decision side because, I haven't done a ton of hiring from the kind of project management admin side of construction in the past. I've mostly done field hiring, right, which I have a pretty good grasp on. But you guys were able to provide good feedback and help on, here's what you guys have experienced in the past and things to look out for, as well as, help guide me on here's where we see a need in your business, right? And if you hire this person for X amount of dollars, it should, in theory, produce X return and also free up whatever amount of time it is you need to focus on running the business, which in my case was a big need. And I really never put two and two together on that until I came on board with you guys. So on the hiring front, you help kind of provide that light into, hey, yeah, it's going to cost you some money, but also here's a return on that money. So yeah, that was very helpful.
And I love seeing too, as we went through that process and you were hiring for a specific role, seeing like, hey, here's how much we need to increase your top line revenue by in order to like pay for that job and cover that. And it's always fun to see that. It's like, oh, that's not bad. Like, cool. I can do that. And I think as owners, we get so concerned about, like, we see the number of salary and it's like, I don't know if I can afford that. It's like, well, will it free us up, either that person to go create that new revenue for us, or free you up enough to take time to go create that revenue? And it just puts it in such a different light when you look at it from a true investment standpoint and not just here's the cost. What do you feel like, from a discipline standpoint, we were able to help with? And this is a weird question maybe, and I don't ask everyone this, but you have been so disciplined in going through your numbers on a weekly basis and like filling in that sheet that we came up with together. Right. How has your behavior changed as a result of what we've done together, at least when it comes to finances? If you compare finances last year with finances this year and your behavior around that, how do you feel like behavior has changed?
So what I've experienced is, like I said, I had no discipline. Now I do have discipline, right? So my admin who does my bookkeeping for us, she'll present me with numbers every single week. And I use spreadsheets that you guys have built out for me that I can enter in that data. And it's going to tell me on a weekly basis, did we win? Did we lose? And I can start finding out and seeking answers on why, whether good or bad. I know why we ended up where we ended up. And so the discipline for me is now I have some, right? Now I have a plan. Whereas before I didn't have a plan. I was just kind of flying by the seat of my pants. Now I don't. Now I know every Monday I'm sitting down, I'm entering those numbers, and I can basically get as close to a real-time review of where the company is I'm ever going to get. And that's so vital to me now. It's priceless information that I never had before.
It's been so cool to see, because we visualized that data, in a graph form. It's been so cool to see that graph over a year and the trend of that, because there's highs and lows in business for everyone, right? Yeah. But it's been so cool to start to see that trend for you, like, oh, this is where it's going, right? And there's always this feeling, I think, as business owners, like, oh, the wheels are completely about to fall off the cart. Like at any given moment, the wheels could fall off. We all have that to a degree, but it's been so cool to be able to quantify that progress that you've made over the last year and see the change, not just in the bank accounts, but like, oh, when I take everything into account, because I know, and especially in a construction type business, there's always like, it's so hard to take a snapshot and say, this is where I'm at, because you always owe someone money. Someone else always owes you money. And then there's what's sitting in the bank. And it's like, it gets hard to see the, like, where am I really at? Like you mentioned. And it's been so fun to pull that visual out of like, cool, here's the journey. Here's the path. Here's where you're at compared to the beginning of the year. Yeah. And that's been fun for me on the coach side. You see, like, dude, look,
it's been really helpful for me because there's during those low lows or low months, you know, where I'm totally out of pocket for all these expenses. I haven't been able to collect on time and cash flow looks terrible. And I'm just beating myself up. I've been able to look at that chart, look at that spreadsheet that you built for me. And it's like, yeah, but actually we're, you know, looking at 6 months ago, we're crushing it, even in our lowest low right now. So having that visualization is, for me, it's critical. It's huge. It's, you know, it really changed my mindset. Whereas I probably would have stayed down in the gutter, down on myself, like, oh, we're getting our butts kicked. This is terrible. But being able to reflect on that and having true, real data that I know is correct and accurate, and I can see that visualized in a chart form, I'm like, okay, we're all right.
Love it. I'm going to take us back for a minute to one of the first conversations we ever had, as we were looking at profitability in your business, because you have a bunch of different things you can do, clearly, and I think this is one of the unique challenges of your business, that you can do everything, and you have multiple locations where you're building.
Right.
Talk about how some of that early work that we did helped you make different decisions about your business, maybe from a bidding process or proposal process, or even like a what we should be focusing on process. How did some of the work that we did early on drive differences in directions as you made decisions?
Yeah, so I mean, that kind of touches back on what I mentioned a few minutes ago, that you guys really personalize this to me and my business. You know, we do, especially when I first came on board with you guys, we did everything. Now we don't so much do everything. We kind of have developed a wheelhouse, right? And that's with your help, because you were able to break down projects for me by the numbers and go, okay, this was profitable on the commercial side, this was profitable on the residential side, and these, not so much. And we were able to dive into those and realize that's not the work we want to do, and kind of weed out the bad apples, so to speak, or the bad projects, and really focus on what's going to make us money. And that, obviously, over the last year, you know, we got that chart and it looks like this, and it's because of that. So
yeah, it's so cool to start seeing. You know, they say that numbers is the language of money, or numbers are the language of money, or it's like that, or the language of business. Where it's like, oh, if I can understand what these numbers are telling me, then I can make much better decisions about where I should allocate my resources, both time, money, energy, and my team's time and money and energy. And it's been cool to see, like, all right, we make these shifts here. Now what happens is we move in this direction, and you've had, you know, now a year to see the results of it. And it's been really interesting to watch now your language around the projects that you're choosing and not, and fun to start setting targets for, okay, well, where do you go then? 3 years down the road, what does it look like for you? So I want to ask you, we'll wrap up with this. What do you feel like you have come away with that has now, like, what are you ultimately going to use in the future from what we've done now? And how do you think the future changes because of what you've learned with us and implemented? Like, how does the future look different? What tools do you feel like you're better equipped with? Ultimately, it's like, cool, now moving forward, how do you feel better equipped for what's coming down the road for you?
So I feel better equipped quite a few ways. Number one is I'm focused on the right work, and that's what I'm going to be pursuing. A year ago, if I would have never come across you guys or jumped on board with you, I'd still be bidding anything and everything and doing jobs that suck, whether it's time suck, money suck, resources suck. It just sucks. But I would be doing it to fill the books, right? Keep the guys busy, and hopefully we make money at the end. I won't be doing that anymore, and I'm not doing that anymore. I know what type of projects we should be focusing on. That's what I'm chasing after. As far as resources, you guys have provided some awesome resources. We got weekly worksheets, monthly worksheets. I still use those. I'm planning to continue using those. They're a part of my weekly and monthly routine that help me decide where to spend that money, where to allocate resources. Do we need more projects? They're vital in the operation of my business. So, I can't thank you guys enough. Aside
I love
from
it,
what
man.
I've learned and retained, the resources you provided they'll be with me until I'm out of business, which hopefully is 20 or 30 years from now. So,
Dude, when you go to sell the business, you mean?
that's right. That's right.
All right. Last thing. If someone's like, hey, construction's a different business than many others. Can CEO Finance Academy help a construction-based business? What would you say to them?
I would say absolutely. I was skeptical and hesitant at first because I've worked with some other coaching entities that just couldn't do it. They were really singular focused on, hey, as long as you sell a product and, sell here for this much and end of day, there you go. Construction world is not like that. There's so many moving parts. And the way that CN's individualizing, they're able to accommodate that and understand that and help you dive deep and understand where you need to focus on. And it's been an absolute game changer for me. And that's coming from both sides of construction, commercial and residential. I can't say enough about Alex and the team. You guys are awesome.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate you, man. And thank you, too, for taking time out of your very busy schedule to hit it today.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, man, and so excited to see what happens for you over the next year as you keep taking these lessons and applying them. We'll see you, brother.